When did you risk your life to help a friend? The moment my phone buzzed, I knew something was terribly wrong. My friend Sadi's voice, choked with sobs from a bar bathroom, begged me to pick her up. Her psycho ex, Tom, was circling outside, and he'd found her. 15 agonizing minutes later, I found her. Sadi stumbled into my car, reeking of tequila, tears streaming down her face as she sobbed. He found me. He found me. She'd moved to a whole new part of the country just to escape Tom, her abusive ex. Now he was here. I started driving, deliberately taking side streets, hoping the quiet roads would calm her, or at least help me feel like I was in control. But 3 blocks from the bar, my stomach clenched. A black pickup truck. 2 cars behind us. It wasn't just following, it was mirroring every move. First turn, it turned. Second turn, it turned. Maintaining that same, eerie 2-car buffer. I changed lanes, it changed lanes. I slowed down, it slowed down. I risked a glance in the rearview mirror. Sadi was thankfully passed out, probably better that way, so she wouldn't freak out. At the next red light, my blood ran cold. I got a clearer look, a huge silhouette behind the wheel, staring directly at my car. The light turned green, and my hand trembled as I shifted gears, desperately trying to project normalcy, while my heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. He matched my speed with chilling precision, maintaining that space as if it were a professional ballet of terror. I had to test it. I took a sudden, unsignaled right. The cars between us went straight, but Tom's truck yanked across 2 lanes, horns blaring, just to follow. Now it was just him and me. No buffer. My hands were slick with sweat. I had to wipe them one at a time on my jeans. Sadi stirred, mumbling about feeling sick. In the mirror, Tom was terrifyingly clear. Both hands gripped the wheel, leaning forward, practically willing his truck faster. I floored it to 45 in a 30 zone, my whole body rigid with tension. He sped up. I slammed the brakes to 20. He slowed to 20. At a stop sign, he stopped so close his high beams filled my entire rear window, bathing the car in stark white light and terrifying shadows. My foot shook uncontrollably on the brake. Sadi woke up, squinting. What's happening? I just told her to keep her head down, my voice coming out high, scared, barely recognizable. The truck's engine revved, a deep, guttural growl that vibrated through my seat, making every instinct scream at me to floor it, right through the intersection. At the next light, I ran the red, a desperate prayer on my lips, my heart in my throat as I checked for cross traffic. He followed without hesitation, nearly clipping a sedan that had to slam on its brakes. Any pretense of coincidence was gone. This was a hunt. I took a hard left onto a main road, tires squealing in protest, pushing the car to 60. My knuckles were white, my eyes darting obsessively to the rear view. He was right there, maybe 10 feet from my bumper. I changed lanes, he changed lanes. I swerved back, he swerved back. Sadi was fully awake now, twisted in her seat, staring at him. "That's Tom's truck," she whispered, her drunken slur replaced by the coldest, rawest fear. I tried to stay calm, mumbled something about heading to the police station, but my voice cracked. At the next light, as I tried to change direction, Tom accelerated. He tapped my bumper, just hard enough to make my car lurch forward. Sadi screamed. I bit my tongue, the metallic taste of blood filling my mouth. He tapped us again, harder this time. I heard something crack in my rear bumper. A chilling sound. I floored it through a dying yellow light, my whole leg shaking so violently I could barely keep the pedal down. Tom blew straight through the red light behind us. Then, he pulled alongside me in the left lane, pacing me. I could see him screaming, his face purple with rage, spit splattering against his passenger window. It was pure, unfiltered hatred. He swerved towards us, and I yanked the wheel right, tires shrieking, my entire body rigid with pure terror. Sadi was sobbing, begging me to go faster, but we were already doing 70 in a 40 zone, my hands trembling so violently I could barely keep the car straight. Tom dropped back again and then rammed us. Properly this time. The impact snapped my head back with a sickening jolt, pushing us into the oncoming lane. Headlights bore down on us, and I screamed, wrestling the wheel, fighting for control. He rammed us again, and my bumper let out a horrible, grating scrape as it partially detached. I was crying now too, just trying to keep us alive, while Sadi fumbled desperately with her phone, trying to call for help. Ahead, I spotted her apartment complex. A split-second, desperate decision. Get her home, run inside, lock the doors. I took the turn into her complex so fast. We went up on two wheels for a terrifying second, my stomach dropping like a roller coaster. Tom's massive truck was too big to make that turn at speed, overshooting it with a shriek of brakes. We had maybe 30 seconds. 30 seconds of grace. I screeched into Sadi's driveway, and we both fumbled with our seatbelts, our hands shaking so violently we couldn't get them undone. We were barely halfway to her front door when Tom's truck roared into the driveway behind us, high beams blazing, pinning us like terrified deer. He'd blocked my car in completely. Tom stepped out of his truck, a baseball bat clutched in his hand. He walked slowly, deliberately, towards us, savoring the moment, knowing we had nowhere to run. "Sadie," he roared, "tell your little boyfriend we're going to have a little chat." He took another step, and the bat made a soft, sickening tap against his leg. I shot through my veins. I grabbed Sadi's arm, pulling her behind me, while my other hand blindly fumbled in her purse for her keys. My fingers shook so badly, I couldn't get a grip. 5 seconds. Tom screamed, "Get out of my way, or I'll put you in the hospital." 4, 3. My hand finally closed around the keys, and I shoved them at Sadi, who was already at her door, frantically trying to find the right key for the lock. The deadbolt was stuck. She was crying, twisting the key so hard I thought it might snap. Tom was close enough now that I could smell the sour stink of beer on him, a smell that made my stomach churn. "We don't want any trouble," I yelled, my voice cracking, way too loud. "Just let us go inside, and we can all calm down." He laughed, an ugly, humorless sound. Then, a woman's voice cut through the night from above us. "I'm filming all of this." I looked up. Someone on a second-floor balcony, phone raised, flashlight on. "Already called 911, so you better get out of here." Tom's head snapped up. His face went dark, like a storm cloud had passed over it. He swung the bat, hard, into my car's taillight. Plastic exploded everywhere, little red pieces bouncing off the concrete. The sound made me jump back into Sadi, who was still fighting that stuck lock, sobbing harder now. My hand, without conscious thought, found my car keys in my pocket. I hit the panic button. The alarm screamed. The lights flashed, bright white and orange, turning the parking lot into a chaotic disco. More apartment lights flickered on, faces appearing in windows, curtains pulled back. Tom's eyes darted around at all the witnesses. For the first time, he looked nervous, shifting his weight. I kept myself between him and Sadi, trying to steady my voice. "The cops are coming, man. This isn't worth it. Just leave." His answer was another swing of the bat. This time, my side mirror shattered, hanging by its wires, swinging madly behind me. I heard the lock finally click. Sadi practically fell backward through the door, grabbing my shirt, yanking me inside. Tom lunged forward at the exact same moment. We slammed the door just as his shoulder hit it, the whole frame shaking like it might come off its hinges. I threw the deadbolt while Sadi fumbled with the chain. Both of us gasping for air, sounding like we'd run a marathon. Tom was pounding on the door with the bat, screaming threats. "This isn't over. Sadie belongs to me." Each hit made the door jump, and I pressed my whole body against it, as if that would somehow help. Then I heard it. Sirens. Faint at first, then rapidly growing louder. The pounding stopped. So suddenly, the silence felt wrong, terrifying. Through the peephole, I watched Tom sprint back to his truck, the bat still in hand. His tires screamed as he backed out so fast he clipped a trash can, sending it rolling across the parking lot. Then he was gone, just red taillights disappearing around the corner. My legs gave out. I slid down the wall, collapsing onto the floor. Sadi crumbled next to me, and we just sat there, shaking, covered in a cold sweat, even though it wasn't hot. My hands trembled so badly, I couldn't even make a fist. The sirens grew louder and louder until I saw the red and blue lights flashing through the window. About 3 minutes after Tom vanished, a solid knock on the door made us both jump. "Police. We got a call about a disturbance." I peered through the peephole, a cop standing there, but I was still so paralyzed by fear, I couldn't move. "Can you show me your badge?" I croaked, my voice barely working. He held it up, and I made him do it again, my eyes refusing to focus properly. Finally, I opened the door, chain still on, just enough to see him better. Officer Vikram Law, his name tag read. He was younger than I expected, maybe 30, with kind eyes that made me feel a sliver less like I was going to throw up. "We got multiple calls about someone with a bat threatening people," he said. "Are you folks okay?" I unhooked the chain, opening the door the rest of the way, my whole body still trembling. Behind him, 2 more police cars, and cops talking to Miriam, the woman from the balcony. My car sat there, a sad, broken mess, lights smashed, mirror dangling, pieces of red plastic scattered around it like confetti from the world's worst party. Officer Law asked if we needed medical attention while his partner documented the scene, taking pictures of my mangled car. Sadi tried to explain, but she kept mixing up the timeline, crying harder every time Tom's name left her slurred, tequila-soaked lips. I had to keep filling in the gaps, while Law patiently wrote in his notebook, asking us to slow down, to repeat. Sadi would jump from the car chase to something that happened 3 years ago. The officer kept looking between us, trying to piece together the chaos as Sadi hiccuped and swayed. His partner returned, shaking his head, showing Law photos on his phone of my smashed bumper, the dents, the broken glass littering the asphalt. Miriam came down, phone in hand, straight to Officer Law. "I filmed the whole thing," she told him, including Tom swinging that bat. She played the video right there, the sound of metal hitting glass making me flinch all over again. You could hear her voice on the recording, calm and clear, saying she was calling 911. Law took her name, number, asked if she'd give a statement. "Absolutely," she said. "I saw everything." She pointed out where Tom stood, which way his truck went, even remembered it was a black Chevy with a cracked left taillight. It made me wonder, seeing how precisely Tom had mirrored me, that eerie 2-car buffer at first. Was he truly just in a blind rage, or was there some chilling, calculated plan behind his intimidation? The level of control, for someone supposedly flying off the handle, just didn't add up. Officer Law explained they'd put out an alert for Tom's truck, but without him actually here, they couldn't make an arrest. My stomach dropped. What good was calling the cops if they couldn't do anything? He gave us a case number, a tiny card. A detective would follow up in a day or two. But standing there, looking at my wrecked car, it felt like we were utterly on our own. Sadi started crying harder, terrified Tom would come back to finish what he started. The officer advised, "You should consider staying somewhere else tonight, just to be safe." My hands still shaking too badly to type, I pulled out my phone to call a tow truck. The driver arrived 30 minutes later, took one look at my car, and whistled. "Whole rear end smashed, frame might be bent. Not safe to drive. Serious bodywork," he said, "probably my $500 deductible, which I absolutely did not have." Miriam went back upstairs and came down with a bag of frozen peas for my neck, which was screaming in pain from the whiplash, and a first aid kit for my tongue, still bleeding from where I'd bitten it. My spit came out pink. The cops left, handing us cards with victim services numbers, telling us to call if Tom showed up again. Their cars pulled away, leaving us in the silent parking lot at 2 a.m. Sadi suddenly turned on me. "This is your fault," she accused. "You should have driven straight to the police station like I wanted." I snapped back. "You could have mentioned your psycho ex was in town before I picked you up." We went back and forth, getting louder, until Miriam stepped between us. We stopped, looked at each other, realized we were just terrified, lashing out at the wrong person. Sadi grabbed my hand, squeezing it, and we both mumbled sorry at the same time. Miriam suggested we document our injuries for the police report and offered to drive us to the urgent care, open all night. We piled into her Honda, me in the back clutching the peas to my neck, Sadi sniffling up front. The urgent care waiting room had that sterile, gross hospital smell and harsh fluorescent lights that made everything look green. The nurse called us back one at a time, taking photos of the bruises already blooming purple on my neck, making notes about my swollen tongue. She gave me papers about concussion symptoms, saying I was lucky it wasn't worse, which, honestly, didn't feel very lucky at all. Sadi was checked too, the nurse documenting bruises on her arms from bracing herself during the chase, and checking her blood alcohol level for the report. We finally got back to Sadi's apartment around 4:30 a.m. Miriam, our unlikely guardian angel, told us to call if we needed anything before heading back upstairs. I crashed on Sadi's couch, too exhausted to even take off my shoes. My phone buzzed. A voicemail. I played it. Just heavy breathing, and the distinct, chilling sound of an engine revving, over and over. My whole body went cold. It was Tom. And somehow, he'd gotten my number. I deleted it immediately, but sleep wouldn't come. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, jumping at every single sound outside. By the way, if you're gripping your seat right now, make sure you hit that subscribe button. More stories that will leave you breathless are coming. Officer Law called at 9 a.m. the next morning. He asked how we were, then gave us information about getting a protective order and the number for Priya Lockhart, a domestic violence advocate. When I told Sadi, she just shook her head. Too embarrassed. This was her fault for dating Tom in the first place, she insisted. She didn't want some stranger judging her. Around noon, Miriam showed up with sandwiches. Sadi repeated her shame, and Miriam, this incredible woman, sat down beside her. Shame, she said gently, is what keeps people trapped. There's no judgment in asking for help. The only person who should be embarrassed is Tom, for being such a piece of garbage. The next morning, I called my supervisor. I was late. Personal emergency, I said, omitting the part about the psycho ex and baseball bat. She wasn't happy, reminded me I'd used all my sick days. At work, everyone looked at me weird. I probably looked like death. I jumped at every sound. My hands shook so badly I could barely type. My coworker asked if I was okay, and I just nodded, pretending to focus, but I was checking my phone every 5 minutes, desperate to know Sadi was safe. That afternoon, we drove to the domestic violence center. Priya was everything we needed, calm, in her 40s, clearly a veteran. She sat us down in a small office plastered with safety planning posters. Step by step, she laid it out. Very routines. Never take the same route. Check under our cars. Keep phones charged. Have 3 emergency contacts. She gave us little cards, showed Sadi how to set up a one-button 911 call. We practiced what to say, where to go if Tom showed up again. The next day, the courthouse. 2 hours in a waiting room, then a mountain of paperwork. Every detail about Tom, his actions, the witnesses. Sadi had to write out everything, from when he'd hit her years ago, all the way to the car chase. Her hand cramped, tears streamed again. Tom's full name, address, workplace, car, weapons. Sadi remembered his gun collection. Another hour of waiting, then a judge, an older man who barely looked up, as Sadi, voice trembling, explained why she needed protection. He signed the temporary order, good for 2 weeks. Then came the bomb. It wasn't valid until Tom was actually served with the papers. Someone from the sheriff's office had to physically hand them to him. Until then, it meant nothing. How long will that take? We asked. The clerk just shrugged. Depends if they can find him. 3 agonizing days passed. We called the sheriff's office constantly. Can't find him. Not at his last known address. Not at his workplace. His apartment manager said he hadn't been there in days. His boss at the construction site said he hadn't shown up all week. Stay alert, they told us. Call 911 if you see him. I wanted to scream. The whole point was to keep him away, not wait for him to show up again. On the 4th night, I was making dinner when Miriam texted. She'd seen a black truck circling our parking lot, slowly, twice. My stomach dropped. I ran to the window, saw nothing. Called 911 while Sadi grabbed a kitchen knife. The dispatcher said they'd send someone, but 20 minutes later, no truck. The officer shrugged. No plates, no proof it was Tom, not much we can do. I wanted to throw something at him. I wasn't sleeping at all now, just lying on Sadi's couch, eyes wide open, listening. Every car, every footstep. The building creaked, a door slammed. I'd jump up, check the windows, my heart pounding. Maybe 3 hours of sleep a night, if I was lucky, fueled by so much coffee my hands never stopped shaking. Sadi was worse, waking up screaming from nightmares, and then sitting up the rest of the night, baseball bat in her lap. The insurance adjuster finally came for my car. His estimate almost made me throw up. With the deductible and what they wouldn't cover, I was looking at $1,500 out of pocket, plus rental car costs. My credit card was already maxed out from buying groceries for both of us, because Sadi was too scared to leave the apartment, let alone go to work. I had no idea how I'd pay for the repairs. Then Sadi found Tom's social media. Posts like, "Some people don't know when they've got a good thing." And betrayal always comes back around, with angry face emojis. Clearly about her, but vague enough that when we showed it to the cops, they said it wasn't a direct threat. Priya told us to screenshot everything anyway, keep adding it to our file. We spent an hour, meticulously saving every subtly threatening post. By the end of the week, My supervisor called me into her office. Door shut. Never a good sign. She said my performance was slipping, late 3 times, distracted, jumpy. An official warning. If things don't improve, we'll have to discuss your future, she said. Then she slid a brochure across her desk for free counseling. A look in her eyes that said she knew something was seriously wrong. My hands shook as I left her office. She was right. Everything was wrong. That night, I showed Sadi the brochure. We sat on the couch, eating Chinese takeout. She picked at her food, said the protective order hearing was next week, and she wasn't sure she could do it. Her hands folded and unfolded a paper napkin, endlessly. Testifying, she worried, might make Tom even angrier. I put my hand over hers, stopping the frantic folding. Whatever you decide is okay with me, I told her. You deserve to feel safe, no matter what that looks like. The week blurred. Work, watching Sadi pace, changing her mind every few hours. The morning of the hearing, we were early, sitting on hard wooden benches outside the courtroom. Priya arrived, a thick folder of papers under her arm, going over what to expect. We waited 2 hours, watching other cases come and go. Tom never showed. No lawyer for him either. Finally, a woman in a suit came out, asked for Sadi's case number, and told Priya that Tom's lawyer had filed for a continuance. They claimed they weren't properly notified, despite Priya having all the proof. The judge came out for 30 seconds, extended the temporary order, but said we'd have to come back in 2 weeks. Walking back to the car felt like running a marathon for absolutely nothing, only to be told we had to start all over again. The next week was quiet, but the quiet was almost worse than the chaos. Every black truck on the road made my heart pound, sending my eyes scanning for license plates. Sadi wouldn't leave the apartment unless she absolutely had to, and only then with me. She quit going to work, calling in sick every day until they fired her over the phone. I'd catch her at the window, curtain pulled back just a tiny bit, watching the parking lot. At night, every sound woke her, and I'd find her checking the door locks again. Priya came over one afternoon with paperwork for a transitional housing program. It would move Sadi somewhere safe, a confidential address Tom could never find. But it meant leaving everything behind. Her job, her friends, her life here. She'd get a small apartment in another city, help finding a new job, but it would take time. Sadi filled out the forms slowly, each answer a painful goodbye. I finally called the number on that EAP brochure, making an appointment with a therapist. Admitting I needed help felt like giving up, but I couldn't keep jumping at shadows. The intake was in a small downtown office, 20 pages of forms. The therapist, an older woman, listened patiently as I poured out everything. She said what I was feeling was normal after trauma, and we'd work on coping strategies. 3 days later, Priya called with news. Tom had finally been served. They found him at his mother's house, in another state. A sheriff's deputy had personally handed him the papers. The order was now enforceable. He had to stay 500 feet away from Sadi at all times. But that only helped if we saw him coming from far enough away to do something. Sadi was approved for transitional housing, but couldn't move for another month. We started packing, box by box, being careful about storage runs. Different times each day, different routes. I'd watch the mirrors. Sadi would sit turned around, watching behind us. Work was getting better. I'd explain some of what happened to my supervisor. She moved my desk away from the window, let me take breaks. But loud noises still made me jump, and warehouse slams made my body go rigid. I started picking up overtime shifts, trying to pay for everything that had piled up. Then, a letter from Tom's lawyer. He was entering anger management. Wanted the protective order dropped. Said he was getting help, just wanted to move on peacefully. Priya called it typical manipulation. Don't respond, don't even acknowledge the letter. But it made Sadi second-guess everything. Was he really trying to change? She'd stare at that letter for hours, as if the words might magically transform. My car was finally done at the shop after weeks of waiting for parts. The bill was massive, even with insurance covering most. The deductible went on my credit card. Between that and the rental car costs, I was behind on my electric and phone bills. The overtime helped, but constant exhaustion made the anxiety worse. I'd lose track of conversations. At work, I try to focus on spreadsheets, but my mind would drift, checking exits, scanning windows. 2 weeks later, another court summons. More time off work. The courtroom was smaller this time. Just me, Sadi, and our lawyer on one side. Tom appeared on a TV screen, from wherever he'd run off to. Button-up shirt, hands folded like he was in church, telling the judge he was getting help, wouldn't contact Sadi anymore. The judge extended the protective order for a year, but admitted it would be harder to enforce with him in another state. After the hearing, Miriam called a safety meeting in the lobby. About 20 neighbors showed up with coffee and cookies. People I'd never spoken to before shared how they'd installed doorbell cameras, motion lights. An older guy started checking the parking lot at night. Another woman offered to walk with anyone who felt unsafe. It was nice, knowing people were looking out for each other, even if it stemmed from something truly terrible. A month passed. Sadi's move-out date arrived. I helped her pack the last boxes, both of us trying not to cry. She taped kitchen stuff and clothes. I wrapped her pictures in newspaper. We didn't talk much, just kept bumping into each other, hugging. She was scared, but also so relieved to go somewhere Tom couldn't find her. We set up a secure messaging app, promised to stay in touch. The moving truck pulled away, and I stood in her empty apartment for a while, just breathing, before locking up and handing the keys to the manager. I moved back into my own place that weekend, but the habit of checking my locks, over and over before bed, stuck. My therapist said this hyper-awareness was normal after trauma, gave me breathing exercises. Progress was slow. Some days, a normal sound would still make me jump. But my coworkers stopped asking if I was okay, which, ironically, helped me focus on my job. 6 weeks after Sadi left, a text from her. She'd settled in, felt safer. New job at a dental office, seeing a counselor there. She sent a picture of her new apartment, plants in the windows, taking things one day at a time. I saved that picture. I looked at it whenever the worry crept back in. 3 months after that terrifying night, I still tensed up seeing black trucks, but I was functioning better. Work was back to normal. I'd caught up on all the projects. My car was finally fixed, new bumper, new paint, a bill that cost way too much. I was slowly chipping away at the credit card debt, making extra payments whenever I could. The rental car bill alone had been insane. The therapy copays added up fast. But at least I could drive now, without checking my mirrors every 5 seconds. Then Priya called one afternoon while I was grocery shopping. Just checking in. She mentioned Tom had violated the protective order. He'd called Sadi's mom, trying to find out where she'd moved. There was now a warrant out for his arrest. It offered a strange comfort, even though they hadn't caught him yet. These guys usually mess up eventually, she said. They get caught. Just stay alert. I thanked her and hung up, feeling both better and worse. Standing there in the cereal aisle, I realized it then. I'd probably never feel completely safe the way I did before all this happened. Tom was still out there, somewhere, doing who knows what. But Sadi was alive. She was rebuilding her life, in a new city, with a new job and new friends. Sometimes, keeping a friend breathing is the only victory you get, and that has to be enough. What about you? Have you ever had to risk everything for a friend? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to know.